My brother drained my savings account to pay off his gambling debts, and somehow my parents convinced me to forgive him. But when he did something even worse, I couldn't hold back. I exposed him in front of everyone at Thanksgiving dinner. A few years ago, my brother asked to use my credit card to order takeout because his card was locked. Instead of using it for food, he accessed my savings account and cleared out every penny to pay off his gambling debts. That money was supposed to be for a house, but it was gone in an instant. When I discovered what he had done, I lost it. I locked myself in my apartment, started drinking, and sent my brother a text telling him I hated him and that he could rot in hell. The next morning, my parents showed up and tried to tell me that what he did was forgivable because family is more important than money. I was in shock. I yelled at them, asking how they could say that when my brother was their golden boy who could do no wrong. My mother cried crocodile tears, but when she saw I wasn't budging, she started screaming. I kicked them out, telling them they could go to hell just like my brother. My brother had taken over $75,000 from me, and now I had to renew my lease in an apartment for another year when I should have been using that money for a down payment. It had taken me years to save up that amount, and it was gone in an instant. Whenever my parents complained that they hadn't seen me in a while, I reminded them why I wasn't visiting, because of my brother Jim. They would always tell me that I would regret it when I was old and gray, and that I needed to cherish the time we had together. I agreed and told them they could always come to visit me, but truthfully, I didn't want them to. I knew the game they were playing, and I wasn't having it. My mom would tell me stories about how Jim used to take care of me when I was little, like the time I got spaghetti in my hair, and he helped clean me up. Hearing those stories again made me cherish our family a little more. And in a moment of weakness, I decided to give Jim another chance, but with more boundaries. Forgiving him took time. As the days turned into weeks, it still pained me to think about him, especially since my first house was now out of reach. I tried my best to be cordial with him, and my parents were happy to see us rebuilding our relationship. They invited me over more often for family dinners, game nights, and movie nights in an attempt to get things back to how they were before. After a few months, I felt like I could laugh a little more around Jim, and we even started hanging out alone again, going on brother-sister outings. We loved ziplining, and there was a place near our parents' house where we would go a lot as teenagers. It was fun going there with Jim again. But when we got back, something felt off. As we pulled into the drive-thru of a fast food place, I noticed my main credit card was missing. I wondered if it had fallen out at the ziplining place. Jim asked if everything was okay, and I told him my credit card was missing. He offered to pay for our food with his card, and I thought nothing of it. But when I got home, I checked my wallet and found my credit card in a different pocket. I figured I was just tired and went to bed. The next night, I got a text from my credit card company asking for authorization for a transaction at a casino near my parents' house, the same casino where Jim spent his entire paycheck every other Friday. My heart sank. Jim had pulled the same stunt again. I immediately declined the transaction and checked my other accounts. He must have taken pictures of my credit cards and put them back in my wallet. When we hung out, I tried to dispute the charges, but the merchants had proof that Jim made the purchases. They declined my request, and now I was responsible for the debt. I called my brother, but he didn't answer. My blood was boiling. I called my parents and told my mom what Jim had done, how he had racked up $7,000 worth of debt across all my credit cards. She said she would call him and get back to me, but I told her not to bother. I was coming over right then. It was almost 11 at night, and I waited in the living room for Jim to return. When he walked through the door, I scared the daylights out of him. I demanded to know where my money was, and he looked puzzled. I told him I knew he had stolen my credit card information and threatened to call the police if he didn't tell me where the money was. He broke down and confessed, saying he felt bad about me not being able to buy my house this year because of him, so he used my money at the casino to try and win it back for me. But, of course, he lost everything. I was furious. I asked him why. If he felt so bad, he would do it again. That's when my parents came downstairs, and my mom tried to de-escalate the situation. But I was past that point. Jim had taken my house down payment and left me with a mountain of credit card debt. The chances of me buying a house in the next few years were getting slimmer and slimmer. My parents had nothing to say about his actions. Jim apologized profusely, but there was no coming back from this. I cut him off for good. I told my parents to never contact me again and that I was done. In the following weeks, my updated credit report came back, and my credit score had dropped over 100 points. The loan I had applied for was no longer available, and I was forced to get a second job on top of my 9 to 5. I was determined to get my house and live the life I wanted. My phone rang off the hook with calls from my parents and Jim, but I ignored them both. If it weren't for them, I wouldn't have had to work these long hours to pay off this debt. The worst part was that Jim didn't even offer to help pay it off. He felt that since he had stolen my money to make more money for me, he didn't have to pay it back. I could never trust him again. I had tried time and time again, and just when I thought we were making progress, he stole my money again. Working 2 jobs made it easier to pay off the debt, but it took a toll on me. I was exhausted, getting only 4 hours of sleep each night, and my mental health declined. Once I was in a semi-comfortable spot with my savings, I quit my second job and cut back on expenses as much as possible. By October, people had their Halloween decorations out, and my parents called me for the 4th time that week. I finally picked up, and they were relieved to hear my voice. They talked about how much they missed me and reminisced about when I was a kid. Halloween was my favorite holiday, and we would carve pumpkins, watch Disney specials, and enjoy ghost-shaped cookies with hot cocoa. My mom told me how much she wanted to see me, and I told her they could come to visit. She agreed. The following week, my parents came over, and we talked without addressing the elephant in the room. After a while, my mom said she would love for me to come to Thanksgiving since they were hosting it this year. I told her I didn't want to go, but she promised there would be no drama, just a family gathering like always. I thought about it and wondered if I could see Jim again without wanting to punch him. I refused. That's when my dad chimed in, practically begging me to forgive Jim. My dad never asked for anything twice, so I knew this was serious. Against my better judgment, I agreed to forgive Jim and attend Thanksgiving. My parents were thrilled, assuring me that Jim would never pull a stunt like that again and that I was safe from his antics. As Thanksgiving approached, I felt alone in my family. I saw them on social media going out to eat and posting about game nights, and I felt like I should have been there. But the sting of betrayal had broken my trust in them. I was still dealing with financial issues, trying to choose which bills to pay each month, and slowly rebuilding the pieces of myself that I hadn't broken. As the dinner got closer, I considered backing out because I didn't think it would be good for my mental health. I called my mom, and she was so excited that I was coming. She told the entire family I would be there, so my plan to back out was out the window. When Thanksgiving came, I felt uneasy as I drove to my parents' house. I had no appetite and feared that anything I ate would come back up. When I walked in, I saw my family sitting at the dinner table, laughing and smiling. My brother acknowledged me as if nothing had happened, enjoying the evening like all had been forgiven. He even tried to make cheeky jokes with me, but it infuriated me to see him having a good time, knowing that I would have to go straight to bed after dinner to prepare for work the next day, work that I was forced into because of him. At the end of the dinner, I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up, my heart pounding, and looked straight at my brother. I laid everything out for the entire family to hear. I told him how he had destroyed me financially, how I had been forced to work multiple jobs just to stay afloat, and how I no longer trusted him. I told him I was done pretending everything was okay. Then I turned to my parents and said they had been enabling him for years, choosing this fake version of family unity over my well-being. The whole room went silent. You could hear a pin drop. My brother tried to laugh it off, saying it was all in the past, but I cut him off. I told him I was done forgiving him and that he was no longer welcome in my life. I stormed out, thinking I would be dealing with the fallout alone. But over the next few days, other family members reached out to me. They apologized for not having my back sooner, saying they had no idea how bad it was. Some even offered to help me financially, trying to make up for what he had done. It was more than what Jim did. I thought I would have been on my own, but it turns out not everyone was willing to turn a blind eye to his behavior.